How you feel out here, living out here?
Jurors hear from YNW Melly and the two friends he's accused of killing.
We were talking about that jump back in the day. They like,
Swipe under.
they going to jail. Crazy. Rapper, that's what you want to be? Better go get a job.
They also see a video of Melly and Bortland hours after the homicides having a good time.
No, still time. Regardless of what happened, you already know.
These are just some of the major moments from the testimony of the lead detective in Melly's double murder trial. Welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar podcast. I'm Angenette Levy. Detective Mark Moretti is the state's final witness in YNW Melly's murder trial. He spent hours testifying about things that he found as he investigated the murders of Chris Thomas Jr., who went by YNW Juvy, and Anthony Williams, who went by YNW SakChaser. Some of the testimony focused on money, text messages, and arguments between YNW members, particularly Sak and Melly. Melly's mom, Jamie King, is also mentioned in these arguments. Sak was none too happy with her in the months before the homicides. Joining me to discuss some of the big moments so far from Detective Mark Moretti's testimony is Bobby Chacon. He's a retired FBI agent who investigated gangs and the mafia. He's also an attorney, so he knows a lot about criminal cases. Bobby, welcome back to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Good to be back.
One of the things, Bobby, that was interesting to me is the fact that Detective Moretti was asked about so-called satchel man purses that both Bortland and YNW Melly were carrying when they left the recording studio that night before the homicides were committed. And Detective Moretti was asked about these man purse / satchels. So let's listen.
Were any man purses, satchels found in that gray Jeep?
No, ma'am.
Specifically, the beige one that's pictured at 21840.
No, ma'am, we did not recover that.
Continuing forward to 21905. Was a black satchel recovered?
No, ma'am.
Specifically the one that is seen in the individual in the black and white jacket?
Correct.
Did Mr. Henry have possession of either of those satchels or man purses at the hospital?
No, ma'am.
Okay, Bobby. So the big point here is the fact that they leave the studio with man purses, and then Bortland arrives at the hospital in a frenzy with his two dead friends in the car. They seize the car, no man purses. How significant do you see that?
Well, I mean, in a case like this, where the allegation is they carried out the murder with guns can fit into those satchels very well, and then they're gone, and then the guns are gone, and we can't find the guns, right? So this is a very this is a way of the prosecution explaining where the guns were, what happened to them. Clearly, Melly's not there. Bortland arrives. It's worse for Bortland because he has it in his possession. You can see it physically on the tape, and then, if his story is to be believed, he gets in that vehicle with the two victims, and then they're shot, and then he goes to the hospital. So there's no intervening stop that he makes. There's no intervening thing that would remove that satchel from him. Melly, we don't see at the hospital, so we don't know where when his story alters from that. But Bortland's his story is, I got into the car, we were driving, this drive-by happens, and then I go to the hospital. So that satchel that you see him with in that video should be on him or in that car. And so, that's where it gets interesting. And clearly the implication by the prosecution is, they were carrying their weapons in those satchels. When Melly got out of the car and left, he took both men with him. I assume that's what they're going to allege in their closing arguments.
Seems like that's where they're going. The next point that was interesting was the fact that, we have these cell phones these days that track everything we do, our steps, everything. And Detective Moretti said he analyzed the cell phone records, and he looked at where Melly's cell phone, which is in dispute. The defense says it was almost like passed around and used by everybody, but the state says no way, it was Melly's phone. He says he looks at that, the longitude and the latitude, and it puts Melly's phone right at the crime scene. Take a listen.
So Detective Moretti, I want to go here to Publishing States 90. once you have your bearings on this. This point from the 9807 phone. I'm going to switch over to the other side. At 4:03 a.m. What area does this depict?
This is the actual crime scene on US 27 Pembroke Road.
And approximately where along Pembroke Road on this map were those casings discovered?
It was on the south side of the road, about 820 meters from US 27. 820 feet from US 27, and approximately where the GPS coordinate is at.
Okay.
So Detective Moretti is saying that Melly's cell phone was essentially at the crime scene, that intersection of Pembroke Road and US 27 at 4:03 a.m. That's, 30 minutes before Bortland arrives at the hospital. So how significant is that?
Well, it's very significant, and this is how you see a prosecution building a case. So we saw testimony earlier in the trial that Melly was taking selfies with this phone and doing FaceTimes with this phone and using this phone actively. And like you said, he's trying to allege this was kind of a community phone and passed around. But the prosecution has already put in evidence, testimony that that ties him pretty directly to this phone. This is his phone. You tie that with the fact that it's 4:03 a.m. in the morning. How many people are up there, and how many people in this so-called community that's using this phone is up at 4:03 a.m. in this rural area where you look at that aerial photograph, there's not a whole lot of other things around. This is not a convenience store where a bunch of people are hanging out or anything. So, this phone in that rural area that they've already established through previous testimony he uses and is pretty much his sole exclusive phone. You can see how they're building through different testimony of different witnesses their narrative and their storyline, and this is another damning piece. If it's giving credibility, which it should be, this is scientific evidence. So it's one of those pieces that tell the story of where Melly was that evening.
The defense is basically disputing a lot of this and saying that Detective Moretti isn't even an expert in this, and he shouldn't even be introducing this evidence. So it'll be interesting to see what the defense does on cross with this and when they call their own experts. One thing the defense has also said in this case is, Melly, Juvy, Sak, they were all best friends since growing up in a kind of a really bad neighborhood in Florida. And, there was some friction, it looks like, between Sak and Melly leading up to these homicides. And really, Sak was upset about what he thought was Melly getting all of the credit for their success. So let's take a listen.
Oh yeah, and I meant to tell you all, I told you before we went to Cali, that me and Juvy, CEO, Peso, the artist, cause you be moving on this music just cause you pop ain't fitting be looking confused all my life. Y'all really, my artist, you ain't doing that part right. I got these N-words right, y'all ain't fitting, just keep saying that y'all be on some lifestyle shit, just can't say they artists just to look good, do the same shit I be doing. I'm just under you cause I let you be the face, but I'm the CEO.
So Sak is saying, look, you're getting all the credit. I'm the one who's behind this, I'm the boss. So there's obviously some friction, despite what the defense claimed in its opening, that these are his best friends. There was nothing going on here.
Well, both things can be true at the same time. That's the issue. My issue with the defense's argument is like, they could be best friends. I could believe that they grew up as best friends and still were. But man, when money comes between friends and it becomes big money and it's a music career, and not only money, but it's notoriety and it's publicity and fame, all of that really drives people's dark side of their personalities. And that's what you're seeing in some of this. You see the resentment. I buy the fact that they were childhood friends and they grew up very close friends together and still were. But at some point, there was a growing rift between them. And I think these types of texts kind of prove that, or at least lend support to to that allegation. There was a rift here. There was some jealousy. There was some resentment about who was getting the credit and who was the face of it and who was really the CEO of it. And so I think that this goes very well to support the prosecution's claims that, yeah, these guys may have been great friends, but, it's been known to drive great friends apart. Fame and money are two, women, fame and money are always the things that kind of come between good friends. And here you have the fame and the money aspects of it. And I think that's kind of corroborated in these texts.
And there's a lot of discussion about money in a lot of these text messages that we haven't put up because this is very tedious as the detective reads through all of it. But there's a lot of talk about money and Melly needing to get money from Track, his manager. He needs to get a new card. There's Sak wanting money and talking about the police coming to his house looking for Melly's money. I mean, there's all this talk about money and 10,000 changing hands here, 10,000 there. So money seems to be a big factor in this case. We're going to look now at some texts between Sak and Melly where they talk about Melly's mom, Jamie King. And it sounds like Sak felt like Jamie King was trying to break up YNW Melly, to break them up and have Melly kind of be the star, even though he was the front man. So let's look at these texts.
I'm good. It's just somebody telling me y'all up to something. You don't owe me nothing. We is the same person. But how you let this shit keep going this far? What if it was the other way around? My mom wouldn't be doing no shit like this.
Next message at 12:40 p.m. from the 9081.
I'm bullying. Ain't say I was beefing with you before. I let something happen to me or play with my family. Everyone will die. Shit like that. Duck with my blood.
And the response from the 9807 phone number on 12/40/41/8/30/2018.
I don't consider her my mama. No mo, fuck that bitch, bro. I know, I feel, yeah, that shit weird, bro.
August 30th, 2018. From the 9081 phone number at 12:41:30.
Then she keep telling people shit about me, and I'm not even worried about her, bro. I'm trying to bull do me. Why? And that's always worried about me, and what the fuck you talking about how you gonna leave, and we can't even get in the gate without you be on some crazy shit.
What page is that?
49, Mr. Howard. And the response on August 30th, 2018, 12:41 p.m. from the 9807.
Like, I don't even be knowing what the fuck to say. No mo. She do shit out of the blue. She the devil. For real. Shit crazy. I don't got shit to do with it. No mo. If you all kill her, fuck it, bro. She ain't my mama. She sold her soul.
So Sak is obviously upset with Jamie King. Melly is saying basically his mom's awful and she sold her soul. It sounds like this is again about money. So, but then, the allegation is that Melly kills his friends. So what do you make of this?
Well, I think he's trying to smooth things over with his friend. I think that, he's kind of trying to say, yeah, she's crazy. You're right. Like, I think he's kind of given in to him a little bit, even if he doesn't believe that. I'm not saying he doesn't or he does. I don't know. But, this could be one of those situations where to calm him down, he's trying to kind of sort of agree with him or go down that road, to distance himself from what the mother's doing, even though, it's benefiting Melly what she's doing, right? So he could be, it's possible he's using her as the scapegoat, right? Even though he's enjoying the fruits of her labors, basically. But he's going to take the face of it and say, look, I'm not with that. I'm not, she's doing that on her own. I don't agree with it, but at the same time, he's benefiting from it. So, it's hard to put too much credence into what he's saying back to this guy, his friend who's clearly upset. He's trying to, I think, talk him away from the ledge by agreeing with him and distancing, so at least by words, distancing himself from his mom.
And now there was a video that was played in court that basically shows Melly and Bortland having a really good time hours, literally hours after his friends are murdered. They're at a video shoot. So we'll take a quick look at that.
Melly still turned regardless of what happened this early morning. He still actually being very positive. Turned still. Hey!
Okay, so Bortland and Melly, I mean, Melly's dancing around 12 hours after his friends have been murdered, his best friends.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I've people respond to grief and death differently. So this is not a slam dunk for me. Like, oh my God, he's dancing around. He clearly is guilty. He's got no remorse, or he's got no grief for his friends. I think that if this was a planned video shoot, and included the whole group, 2 of which are now dead, they probably should have canceled it or would have postponed it at least. So you do think it is kind of odd a little bit. But I don't think for me, it's not like an oh my God moment where look at him dancing around, 12 hours after his friend died. It's tough for me because I've dealt with a lot of people in grief. Grief is really, especially in the early stages, is it's different in different people, depending on how you were raised and your feelings for the other people. But certainly it does support some of the allegations, in the prosecution's theory of the case that, here they are now. They've eliminated 2 of the bands basically, so they could share, so that each of their shares are going to be bigger. And now they're doing a video shoot where it's just the 2 of them. And I don't even know if the video shoot was for that particular group, their band and stuff. But I do think it's odd. But I also have been around enough people who just learned about the death of friends or loved ones to see a lot of different types of reactions.
Could be in shock. I mean, sometimes what's happened doesn't hit you for a while. The final one we're going to look at is something Detective Moretti said really piqued his interest on December 4th, 2018, when he saw a documentary published on Melly's YouTube page in which it says Melly and his friends were the targets of a drive-by. So Detective Moretti said basically the last 20 seconds of that piqued his interest. And I think it's because it basically says Melly and his friends were the targets of a drive-by, and Melly's saying he wasn't even in the car.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if they trip themselves up about that because, obviously, look, we both know very enterprising defense attorneys will say that, when he says they were victims, Melly didn't have to be in the car to be a victim, right? It was against 3 of his close friends, and the 4 of them were a group. So any attack on any one of them is attack on all of them. As a defense attorney, that's what I'd get up and say to kind of smooth over this mistake that they made. It seems like they stumbled over themselves here in saying that, because I think he forgot that his allegation or his defense was, I wasn't anywhere near the car when it happened. And now he puts that on, So I think that's probably caused a little bit of a headache for his defense attorney. But I'm sure, he'll have some way of explaining that as, an attack on one of them is attack on all. And so even though Melly wasn't in that car, as this is going to be the claim of the defense, even though Melly was in that car, he feels he was also a victim of that drive-by because his 2 good friends were killed. So, I mean, you can always explain that away, but it does look to me like they stumbled over themselves here and they kind of forgot what their defense was going to be at trial. And so they included that in this very self-serving documentary.
And, I think what's the important point, at least for the detective's testimony, he's saying, I saw that and it interested me. It got me kind of thinking about this. However, the defense could say, Melly's this big star. He doesn't put that stuff up on the screen. Somebody else typed that. That's not his
Very
he
true.
didn't do that.
Very true. Right.
Well,
Exactly.
Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for your time. As always, we appreciate it.
Angenette, thanks for having me.
And that's it for this edition of Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. You can listen to and download Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always watch it on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. I'm Angenette Levy, and we will see you next time.